being a morning person means this, or being a night owl is makes you more intelligent. And I'm like, well, it is if you're an indirect or a direct sunlight or these types. But we've been commenting on psychology and behavior and things in a way that's very vague and broad. And now we get to like follow the nerve down and see exactly what that is for you particularly, and that combination of things. Hi everybody, I'm back with Marissa to have another chat around human design and our experience with it. And today we're just going to talk a bit about the impact that human design has had on us and our lives. Marissa, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Thanks, Natalie. Hey, everybody. So yeah, I kind of just want to, from my perspective, human design. When I found it, or when it found me, almost 4 years ago, um, it it hooked right away because I'm a projector. I always thought I was lazy. And as soon as I found out I'm a projector and I'm not lazy and I'm supposed to rest more, and then having a defined ego, knowing that is a work to rest function, all of these things that I've always known about myself, it just made me, it was completely validating. And then to go further into PHS and to see indirect light. Another part of my conditioning of believing I'm lazy is I used to love to, or I still do, love to sleep in and stay up late. And that is, what indirect light is. It's also called nocturnal. Technically, it's about taking in food and information and indirect light. But basically, Ra used to tell people who were indirect light they should change their entire lives around and get night shift jobs. So that resonated with me from the rip. And then just knowing where you are undefined and where you're defined, what is your essence and what is your receptivity, what you're receptive to, that's where you're open, and that's where you're you can actually become wise in that area. And we'll be talking, I'm sure, a lot more about that, and like the money receptors and different areas where we can use that openness as wisdom. So that was immediately what hooked me in, though. Everything resonated 100%. Like it was me.
Human
Amazing.
design has these extra, just so much extra to it that it's where astrology sometimes would get a bad rap if it's like, oh, this is very general and it's like, although I would always argue if you do go deeper into a natal chart in astrology, then you see all the nuances and the differentiation in there. But human design now brings in these really specific yeah, the mechanics. It's mechanical. So now the mechanics and like your indirect light, it's not, it's something that, I don't know, we didn't think of things that way. Like people would have their own preferences, but then you get a lot of analysis of the community sort of articles that are like, being a morning person means this, or being a night owl is makes you more intelligent. And I'm like, well, it is if you're an indirect or a direct sunlight or these types. But we've been commenting on psychology and behavior and things in a way that's very vague and broad. And now we get to like follow the nerve down and see exactly what that is for you particularly, and that combination of things as well.
That
Yeah.
was beautifully said. Yeah, absolutely. Um, what was your biggest aha with human design?
I think, oh, I don't know what the biggest one was, but I mean, a lot of, okay, so I
First
think,
one.
yeah, no, I'm like, what's going to come out? One thing was that I was always a person that had a lot going on under the surface. And I had a lot going on under the surface, and in my interactions with people or friends, networks, out in groups, I would keep things to myself as to like maybe what I really felt or thought. And keep things quite superficial. And sometimes, and it actually did create barriers, or it held barriers and separation between me and people. And it was always something that I was really like confused about, because I'm like, I want to be a good person, I want to be a good friend, I want to have the confidence to say what I think, and I'm trying to find people that feel and think what I think, and all along that mission, it's kind of quite complex. So when I started to see my chart and to I could get a language around that internal stuff that was going on, I've got the 12.4 in my, gosh, what placement is it? It's I was just reviewing gene keys actually. So it's my gene key of love. But it is my, gosh, I think it's Venus, sorry, unconscious Venus. I'm pretty sure. Um but it started to like show me like why I was having these like thoughts and feelings on the inside that was sometimes critical and judgmental. Like there's a likeness between the 12 and the 18. Sorry, without trying to get into specifics too much, but I was able to really start to see the complexity of my nature, and instead of being worried or concerned about it, I could now tease out the progression of that aspect of myself. I don't know if I'm being way too deep here, but because I think with human design, we talk about human design, but I'm always kind of weaving in gene keys a bit. I haven't practiced gene keys as much, but I've listened to the audio recordings of all of the of all of the gene keys, and so the looking at things in terms of shadow, gift, and city, and that progression of what each aspect is has been extremely valuable for me to analyze, like what is this like what we commonly see as a lower calibrated or like lesser aspect, or and how that actually blossoms and blooms into something that is helpful, supportive, healthy, like wonderful, like a wonderful aspect. And I guess that is that. So shadow work, I think is like maybe
Yeah.
a quick descriptor is like seeing those shadows and understanding that nuance and how it develops has been extremely impactful.
Mm.
How have you found relationships? How have relationships changed for you with human design?
Uh, okay. Well, I have always kind of pair bonded my whole life. I was always in long relationships. My daughter's father, my soulmate, love of my life, passed away a couple years ago, and I found human design like the night of his bereavement. And so, at first I was still stuck in this kind of like fight, flight, freeze state because I didn't grieve properly. And then I started learning human design and learning I had the 1-8, and that's about creative expression. And as I started to exercise that muscle more, and also my 3740 about community and trying to start again and build up a new community and a new tribe of people who resonate to the same or going in the same trajectory as me. I started to exercise those muscles more and realized I have a lot of I'm a split definition, and I have a lot of gates and lines in my chart that refer to allies and having allies. Like I think it's the 38-3. Um, so I realized a lot of it. I'm a projector. I'm split definition. All of this. I can't do life alone. I need to reach out, and I need to be my authentic self. And so that's what I've been doing. And
Mm,
that's basically, yeah. And just knowing what is your energy and what is your essence and what's not. And when you're in a group dynamic and a relationship. And it's been really helpful that way as well.
mm.
Um, yeah. Yeah.
That's, yeah, like I just mentioned my 12.4, but part of that, and I'm going to use the Gene Keys words, but it goes from vanity to discrimination to purity. And this is literally the conversation I've been having the last like day. And what that's part of my learning of with the vanity aspect, that was me judging or critiquing or holding things to myself,
Mm.
and what I couldn't express to people before.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right. When once it gets to the city of purity, it's about being able to maintain my own heart, and not be influenced, but also have love or feel love, while maintaining that discernment as well. So, like maintaining a pure heart and purity, in my interactions. Long-winded, but yeah, that's that same thing.
that's
It's
beautiful.
maintaining yourself and still being with other people.
Yeah, I mean, what I feel like human design does more than anything, I know it's made as a decision-making tool, and there's a lot more areas to it that you can go so deep down the rabbit hole. But I think the most important thing is that it is showing you who you are based on the snapshot of your neutrino stream, your personality, the time you're born, your design 88 degrees before you were born. That's your physiology. And it's, you're a sacred marriage of the two, and they don't always like each other.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you get to learn how to kind of relax into the body and kind of do a dance with the two and get them to kind of work together. And then it's how we interface with the world. Like our types and our strategies are like protection mechanisms. Like me as a projector, waiting to be invited is a protection mechanism so that I don't get rejected, so much by throwing out all of this information that people aren't ready to hear or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so using it for a tool for like the least resistance from the outside is is how I see it. And it's like, oh, it's so beautiful. Like it's like I don't have to interact with that. And it just gives you a permission slip to be you.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Yeah, understanding like the degree of my aloneness and my retreat. So I've got the 12, I've got the 40 and the 33. Um, so it's like so much of me is about and I'm a hermit, the line two, as so much of me needs so much time, but then I can get a bit like if I am in my detriment, oh, and as I have been in the past, like get a bit sooky and sulky and being like, well, no one's coming to find me, and like no one's reaching out, or like you become too alone at some point. So it's this awareness that I'm actually very happy in my own space and essence, and I in isolation, but then I like want to maintain relationships and I guess have that healthy balance, but um it just changes your perspective and approach, I guess, to how I don't really go into that sooky zone or that feeling like I'm missing out or feel like people have forgotten me or whatever. Like that doesn't happen as much anymore because I constantly come back to attune to being all the benefits of being alone and being in my own energy and what I am contemplating and processing and mutating and all of these things. I'm like, yeah, it's just, and now I can love it. But like being in my own essence is something I love. Yeah, while not pushing
Mm,
everybody away at the
me
same
too.
time. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like every gate we have, every activation we have, shows us the how we have to come into balance, right? It kind of guides us. It has signposts for everything, like if we're off track or on track. And then, like you said, the gene keys, which is derived from human design. Richard Rudd was one of Ra's students. So it is the same information and same material,
Mm.
just in, I guess Richard Rudd is very poetic and a more spiritual, more lighter perspective, whereas Ra can go into the deep dark, like the gray material. And, um, you know, it's, I think that's balance between those two as well. but having that extra layer of the spiritual wisdom and the barometer of shadow gift and city is super helpful. Is
Yeah,
super
I think
helpful too.
I naturally organically melded the two as two sister systems. Like the Jane Case is quite feminine, and the human design is a little bit more brutal, and a little more direct. But the both of them work so beautifully together, and I think investing the time to understand hit the gene keys from that layer and level like adds so much to the human design understanding. So I kind of ended up meshing them together in a way. So I interchange a bit of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I do as well, and, I haven't been as deep into the gene keys as I have with human design, but I do I do really enjoy it and plan to get further into it, and I do like to, interchange those words because sometimes the words I use are really, harsh.
Mm,
Um, for some of them, some of the lines are really harsh,
mm,
um, and it's in the past when I was working at an agency for an organization, it was hard for me to use those words. So I would have to, I was trained by Karen Curry Parker as well, like a while ago. So I also do have the quantum human design language, which
mm.
if I will use one of either that or the gene keys if I'm in a situation like when I was in the agency and couldn't really say one of those words to the people.
I've
Um,
seen a little bit of Karen Curry Parker, but I haven't done any of her particular lessons. But I've kind of yeah, it's I think that's one of the another one of the impacts I guess of human design is like developing that new relationship with the language and some of those words that start off like we've got an interpretation of them and like selfishness is one of them. And I do like I think someone else I've seen someone call it self-fullness instead of selfishness, but I mean whatever, it doesn't the process that I've gone through or like the that deconditioning process I guess that we're still on and I'm still in is that reframing like what these words mean and seeing them as mechanical aspects and not having a negative emotional charge to something but just seeing it for what it is and the benefit that that has because it's all comes down to vibes. It's all frequency
oh yeah.
and vibrations. Um, and we need all of the notes. I'm always going to bring in music references, but like, yeah, we need the
Yeah,
notes. The
absolutely. We do. And now, I would never, now that I'm not working for an agency, I would never kind of leave those words out because I think they're so important. And I think source material is so important because the words are there because they do have a certain frequency. And
Mhm,
Ravy Ching was written for the not self, and it is to awaken you to the higher perspective.
mhm.
And so it is really important to have the foundational words that he does
Yeah,
use.
no,
Yeah.
100%. 100%. And yeah, and then like when you get through that and you change your feeling towards it, like that feels very satisfying. It's like so like that's one of those moments where you're like you can recognize the shift that you've had and the how you've adapted and grown. Um and that I guess that's part of that transformation that happens when you start to do this work and you're transforming into somebody that has less defensiveness or reactive nature. Like and I have all that in my chart. I can be reactive and defensive. And so now that I can soften that, then I can start to progress through to the gifts and to the city aspects instead of just having a tantrum
Yeah, it's
like
so
that sometimes I'm
beautiful.
allowed
And
to have a tantrum as well so
oh yeah, yeah, let those emotions out, girl. How Ross said that it's a cellular level process and that it takes 7 years to fully or to have your first 7 year cycle. I'm between 3.5 and 4 years, somewhere in between there,
Mm.
into my process. And um I know you're somewhere around the same.
I think
Um,
so, yeah.
would you say how do you yeah. How do you feel about the 7 year cycle process? Do you feel like it's, you feel more and more every day that you're deconditioning on a cellular level. Like, can you feel it on a
Mm.
cellular level, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, I really do feel like I can. But I don't know how to explain that exactly. But I guess it comes out in me and shoot, like, because I know my chart. So as I'm growing and as I'm deconditioning and moving, and I have a deeper resonance with who I am and what I am. And so natural rhythms and moving with those natural sort of cycles and things that are in my chart, like that just I know one of the pieces of advice I was given early on was like interact with that visual of your chart, like put it up on the wall and look at the shapes and constantly be like putting it on your body basically so that you kind of embed that relationship. And that's something that I've done and find it really helpful. But I still stare at the chart, and when I think of things or I'm making movements, I can almost apply the chart to my body, and like as I'm doing things, like it's just become very integrated. I guess that's one of the impacts that I wanted to mention around what human design has done is like it did infiltrate my life quite one like once I got this once it planted I wanted to consume it, and then it just moved into my being, and every single interaction that was going on with me and a friend or family or in life, like it just had that. Now it has human design laid over top of it, and I'm constantly using it to explain circumstances and situations and behaviors, and um,
Mm.
it just moved in. So it was a little bit challenging to continue talking about things or relating in ways that where people didn't have that framework, and I think I felt a lot of a bit of pressure or something around that, like trying to convert my understanding or to share it. Um, and so that was a learning process in the beginning, I guess, is what I wanted to say. It's like, because that was, early on, not much deconditioning is going on, and I was clumsy and I made mistakes. I made errors. I fumbled. I and then I had,
Mhm.
outcomes from that. So it was not all complete smooth sailing, but at the same time, like it's been so beneficial. Things that I didn't know I needed to clear the pathway to make space to be able to go deeper into my design, get into alignment, um, and just sit with that and not feel frightened. I guess like we've got that fear element where I think we might talk about fear a bit more in some
Mhm.
future conversations. We've mentioned that. Um, but like I just don't feel the fear anymore. I don't really have a lot of fear. Um,
Yeah. And we both have undefined spleens.
mm, yeah,
Yeah.
so learning more
I felt that.
is good for us.
Yeah, and I felt the same thing that you were just describing. It was like I felt so kind of alone, like no one else around me knows this stuff. And I just want to, that's all I can want to talk about right now. I guess
Mm.
I was taking in too much at a time, and I needed to process it. My 1/8 needed to you know, but over time it just downloaded in, and and
Hmm.
it's there now, and
Yeah,
and you can never stop learning about it. It's just like
yeah,
there's always more. There's always a deeper layer.
yeah.
And you can really pinpoint like your deepest shadows and pain points, health things, all different things. You can pinpoint them, and it's so specific.
Hmm.
Yeah,
No,
it's really great.
absolutely.
So another okay, final points for me where human design just changed my life and blew me away was, besides the acceptance of myself and learning my unique energy, and it's literally it's a language that you're learning. It's the energy, it's a language of the energy that everything in this world is happens from. It's underneath every behavior, it's underneath every action, everything. It's the entire this entire plane that we're on. So it encompasses all of that into, you know, it's a very logical system. It makes sense. I've always been enamored by trying to find the root of consciousness and how consciousness works and all that. And like, you know, listening to Ra's material and the gray courses and the mystical way and the nature of the stars, um, that stuff, knowing like that we are just filters of consciousness. We're filtering the neutrino stream and we all have different filters
Mm,
and we all see uniquely and we're all so very unique and we need all of us that are here on this earth at this time to be in alignment to go forward because we're going to be going through some big changes as the wheel is turning and yeah, so just I think everybody should know. I think they should teach it in schools. Like it's incredible. But even the cosmology, the rave cosmology, like I was able to make sense of my past and map out my daughter's father's psychosis, like the triggers that are in the chart, and you know, see whether he was in transference and getting messages from the demons instead of the gods, which was what
mm,
was happening. You go, below the line into the substructure there. And then even with in the dream rave, that shows you where you're the most conditioned. And I know a lot of people don't even look at that, but yeah, it's really really deep, really
mm.
deep stuff. And
We should also add a plug for are people still able to access joining those sessions that Vicky Hale and you're running with Vicky?
um, so she did start the class. We're on our second week. I'm sure we could send anybody the recordings and then they could sign up and because yeah, I'm sure. Mhm.
And so do you want to explain exactly what that class is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Vicky McHale, she's teaching the Dream Rave class. She's actually doing it um, in a very unique way. She's doing two separate classes, but they're both related to the Dream Rave. The first class is just on the Dream Rave, and the second class is on the amino acids.
Mm,
And the amino acids are um, so when we go to sleep, we're basically in our mammalian design, like our animal design, our primal. It's primal. It's only 5 centers, not 9 centers.
mm,
We don't have a head and ajna. We don't have an ego. We don't have an emotional center. So when we sleep and we dream, we may think that we're feeling certain feelings and emotions, but we're actually not until we wake up. We don't really feel it until we wake up, and how it the chemistry works is dependent on which amino acids. Each gate is correlated with specific amino acids, and there's only 15 gates instead of 64 in the dream.
mm,
So those gates transfer to the other gates in each codon group, and it goes through a pathway. So you can actually map out your a chart of the pathway that your dream gates are going into, all the other codons there, and see how you're being affected there.
mm,
So yeah, so that's what the dream rave, what we're going through now. And then the amino acids part is she kind of just started seeing these patterns. Where the Achilles heel is what we're calling it, is a gate that you have in your dream chart, but not in your waking chart. And that's where you're most at risk for health vulnerabilities. Vicky also has someone in the class who is doing like DNA hair um, testing and other things like that. So she has a lot of evidence. She's been doing a lot of research to see these patterns, and then she's getting medical correspondence back from the people.
Mm.
Um, and everything's been, she has 12 medical cases that are checked off, and then like hundreds of, like people like me who just was able to see it in there
Mm.
and treat my health that way. But, it's a very recent thing that she's seen the
It is,
patterns and
and we're seeing. I think we've been talking about this. We're seeing mentions of these, like looking at amino acids popping up in several different places. But this, yeah, going down into the dream rave and looking at those amino acids, looking. I don't know if I'm saying this right because this is a growing edge for me of understanding. But then looking at that transference, and it's that the transference in the waking life that we you were able to see it in your late husband's psychosis, and I've got examples as well of friends, dear ones, that have been diagnosed with schizophrenia or have had episodes, and then we've even started to have a little look at how that looks in their charts, and we're literally able to track it back and see that transference influence and how they're behaving in the waking life. So it is a little bit complex. It's quite deep, but over time we're going to be able to bring clarity to this and unravel it. And it's a really, really exciting edge. I think of the work that's done because human design itself is fresh, and relatively new and relatively complex. And then now we're already going into these like incredible sublayers that have like real impact on our lives. So it's it's fascinating. So yeah. So they might
it
not,
is fascinating.
yeah.
Yeah.
So looking out for Vicky Hale and her work, and you've been supporting her a bit with that. So cool. Very good.
Yeah. Yeah. Her website is sorry,
Oh no, you go
is
tell
Your
us.
Unique Design, but it's spelled
I'll put it up somewhere.
your and then unique. Perfect. Perfect.
Um, what will I round up with just quickly? I can't remember. I was having a thought and then it was gone. But I think I was like the last thing I wanted to say was just around it's attached to when you were talking about the deconditioning process. Oh, that's right. I was thinking about how um it starts off as a really mental process, and that human design, it is about like kind of learning a system, and then you're a bit in your head and you're trying to like work things out. But that's what I feel like part of that deconditioning process is you go in and you get a bit technical, and then you stand back and you step off and you just allow it to move through you. And so we are going in and doing a lot of mental work, but it's that other side of it of stepping back and allowing that cellular process and surrendering to that process. And I think it does, like I believe in the validity of like the 7 year cycles. We see that in lots of different areas. And so I think I am about where you are as well. So I'm excited, I guess, to see. Like, I don't think it's ever over. But I can see. What am I trying to say? I am excited about like where we could go with this transformation because of how good I already feel, and what's already occurred in a relatively short space of time. Um, yeah, but I'm highly engaged with the process, so. Like, not everybody is going to be that engaged. People will take a little bit of it, and maybe it will help their lives in some ways and in some threads. It's often the case that people take a little bit and then they don't really want to deal with it, and they just carry on with their lives, and that's totally fine, I guess. I guess for them. But if
A lot of
yeah,
times they'll come back later on
mm,
and then they'll be like, "Oh, that's what that was."
yeah, no,
Like some things in hindsight, and it's
mm,
like, "Oh, that's what they were talking about," and then they get
yeah,
back into it. Yeah, some people is like, "This is way too complex." They want nothing to do with it at first, but yeah, it does get easier, and there are many different ways to break it down and to look at a chart and to learn the chart. And like you were saying, just looking at the chart, like
mm,
yeah, I found like using the chart builder on genetic matrix and like mapping out, or even a printed one and coloring, and I remember doing it with my planetary activations just to start remembering where everything was, and doing that, working with the chart and coloring it in, it just, wow, that's when it really like all downloaded. I was like, at one point I was like, I'm never going to remember where all of these 64 gates are. And then after I did that, it was just like, whoop, you know where everything is. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's
Crazy.
amazing. Yeah, I sort of forget things or like need to vision it, but if I'm just like, I'll find it. I'm a little bit slow, but yeah,
Yeah, but it gets
it
there.
gets
Yeah.
there.
It's
All right. Is there any final words, or we'll say goodbye for today and we can pick up our conversation again next week?
Yeah, let's pick up our conversation again next week. And to anyone who's watching, thank you so much. And we would love to hear from you. And please post in the comments any of your experiences with human design, or any of the deeper materials that you would like us to talk about. Whether it's more about the dream rave, or the base tone and color, the substructure,
Mm.
um, you know, whatever, anything you heard us speak about that you want us to talk more about, or yeah, we just would like to engage with people.
No, that's wonderful. We have a lot of plans, and we're meeting to discuss like different courses that we're going to put together, and building community. So definitely, if you're able to watch, send us a comment. Let us know what you're interested in. All right. Thanks, Marissa. I'll end our recording. So bye, everyone.
So here we
Bye.
go.
Thanks, Natalie.